Okay, so this is Roller Games. For those of you not familiar with the Roller Games franchise, in the very late 80s, someone had the bright idea to take roller derby and pro wrestling scripts on it. Then, of course, the licensing came into play and they had video games and such things made, and that's what led us to here. So the first thing is that I select Hot Flash. The main difference between the teams is that they have different move speeds, Hot Flash being by far the fastest, and T-Birds being the slowest. The other difference is that something that doesn't show up quite yet, but in the fight scenes, which we're at just about now, the basic standing attack that each character has is different in that the other two teams can randomly get a more powerful attack, but the platforming sections by far outweigh the rest of the sections, so I don't really use that. This first fight doesn't go quite perfectly. I lose a little bit of time due to them ducking and one of them getting thrown as opposed to just killed with a basic punch. The throw has a pretty long animation that wastes some time. The platforming sections in Stage 1 don't have a whole lot interesting. It's mainly just not getting hit by anything stupid. And other than that, just keep going. This special attack that I use does twice as much damage as a jump kick, which is enough to kill normal enemies. And I abuse the fact that it refreshes or stocks of it through checkpoints at every opportunity. This is a nice little oversight by the programmers, and then just more easy platforming. Nothing too special at this point in the game. This fight, I think I lose total about a second due to bad luck. But with how luck works in this game, it's far more common to lose a lot of time than it is to get a decent fight. There's just so much randomness to the basic attacks. Anyway, I saved my special attacks for this guy because he has 16 health, which is the exact amount that 2 special attacks does, and he has a very high tendency to block things. The boss that you saw running around is actually a named person from the show, Georgia Hayes, and I use a special attack to kill her as well because she has 8 health, and if you don't kill her with the first attack, she goes through that running animation again, which is not possible to hit her out of that I've found. So now we're on Stage 2, which is an auto-scroller, and unlike Stage 1, there are no checkpoints on this stage, which is why a lot of people get to this point in the game and just kind of move on, because all of these pits just instantly kill you and you have to start the entire thing over. I abuse the bad hitboxes on things to hit those two guys, and then I just run into this motorcycle for no particular reason. There's not really a whole lot interesting to say about this part of it. So I make that jump. I do it for 1 because it looks cool, and for 2 because I actually trust it more than that top ramp. This is a nice little position you can take to not get hit by any of this. But the top ramp has a tendency to move you up far enough that you hit the top wall and fall into the pit, so I kind of avoid doing that. So this is actually a place where I was losing a lot of time when I was first running this game. This helicopter drops bombs in a set pattern depending on your exact position. I used to sit in the bottom left corner, but it meant that each cycle of going forward and backwards, he dropped a total of 7 bombs instead of 8, and he has a set number of bombs to drop rather than a set amount of time that he has to be on screen. So I sit in this specific location. If I was another pixel, I believe to the left, I don't remember exactly, but if you're just a little bit different position, you can get him to drop 3 bombs on the very first move back that he makes, and it saves about a half to a quarter second. But it's extremely difficult to hit that place, and I just decided it wasn't that important. So Stage 3 I'm a bit jaded on. On one hand, it's one of the easiest stages to do in a run. There's not really a whole lot that happens, especially in 3-1. And on the other hand, it's one of the only places where I make any actual mistakes. They don't cost me that much time, but it just is kind of a principled thing that I don't really like. Let's see. And there's not really a whole lot to say about this part. It's just avoiding obstacles and still moving. So I misjudged my position a little bit there and got hit by a wrecking ball, which costs, again, a quarter to a half a second. I also manipulated that enemy poorly and had to move away to get him to jump attack me so that I could kill him with the other guy and avoid having to fight without abusing the special attacks. These waterfalls here are a really disastrous section to get through sometimes. There's some randomness to how they drop, and being able to respond correctly to what they do is really important. I got an above average pattern there. There is a better pattern that lets you get through almost that entire thing without getting hit, and but I've seen it all of 4 times. So this fight, I just abused the fact that enemies can only spawn at a set rate, and I abused the fact that there's a pit there, and just move them over to it, kill them, and then special attack to finish the last one so that I can move on. So yeah, this part is just a little bit more platforming. I run into this wall here because it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to make a diagonal jump and then successfully turn and land on that platform. If you hit the wall, you'll bounce off of it and you'll end up just dying. I do that first jump as a timing manipulation, and then I abuse the fact that this is John Guru Drew in the show, and bosses aren't allowed to duck jump kicks like regular enemies are, so I just trap them in the corner and then jump kick away. I did get a little antsy and do an extra jump kick immediately, which meant I missed and wasted a little bit of time, but it's a pretty small amount, and considering how well the fights have gone up to this point in the game, I was not exactly worried about it. So stage 5 is another fantastic auto-scroller, and in this case I don't even have a boss at the end to make sure that I don't lose time on. So the only thing that I do in this is I try very hard to make sure that I don't take any damage. If I'm at full health, I can do some abusive stuff later. So there's nothing too special here. It's just knowing where everything is and not falling into the pits and dying instantly. Because again, there are no checkpoints on either of the auto-scrollers, so you really need to make sure that you don't fall in them. I reset if I don't hit that bird. The one that I actually hit, because I decided I needed to hit that bird. So this is the reason that I wanted to make sure that I'm at full health. That truck instantly kills you if it hits you, but if you're sitting in the corner like this, you have enough health that you don't actually have to move. You'll just wait out his entire pattern. Unlike the helicopter, I have not noticed being in a different spot manipulating him at all. I also know that you cannot be, when he backs up, he actually backs up so far that you don't have room to be behind him. So if you are anywhere but in the bottom row of this when he backs up, you will just die. It's not a damage hit, it is just fatal KO, you're out of here. One thing you'll notice at the end of stages, I don't bother going into the right position like I do during the stages for the fights, because it doesn't actually influence the time. You have to wait for that fanfare to play anyway. But during the stages, I make sure I'm in the right spot. So stage 5 is where the game turns from being difficult to disastrous. This first fight is pretty tough to get to go very well. Usually the enemies duck a lot more than they did here. I was very fortunate to kill the 2 guys on the left without them ducking a single time. I've gotten out of that fight with a 3:11, I believe is my best in-game time on it. The 3:10 is very good. Anything above a 3:08 is really good. I did bump that corner. It doesn't cost as much time as you'd think. The way you bounce off walls keeps your momentum, so you don't have to start up again. It's ugly and unfortunate, but it didn't cost more than probably a quarter second, if even that. This fight, I saved all my special attacks for, because if you don't do it that way, it just eats up time really fast. So this room is a room that I have about a 30% success rate. That jump and that jump are both 2-frame leeway, and I am very bad at that 2-frame leeway. So at this point is where I'm starting to go, okay, here's the part of the game that I don't remember anymore. This is the only actual skip I get to do. She's the only one who can move fast enough to make that jump. It's a lot trickier of a jump than it looks like, but at the same time, I did it in a pretty easy way. You can be farther to the left and save a few frames, but it's not really worth losing the run over. This jump right here, from the one raft to the other, it looks like I'm being really cautious, but in actuality, if I'd been going much faster, I would have gone off the other edge of the ramp because it just really has bad detection on that vertical jump. This fight doesn't go that great. I'm hoping to get more knee bashes like that to throw enemies into the water, but they just didn't really happen. I get out of here with a 203, 202, I guess. I could definitely save a couple seconds there, but it would take a lot of luck in order to get it, and I got really good fights in Stage 6 that helped make up for it. So this is Chuck Skull is his name in the show. His pattern is pretty set. I make sure to stay in the middle because he always chooses the longer path to get to you. And then I do this fantastic glitch. And if I let him live through an additional cycle, he does a much longer cycle for the next one. So that's why I don't just use the special attacks through the normal enemy fight. So Stage 6 has twice as many checkpoints as the other stages. This first section is just kind of some navigation. This fight goes extremely well. I did get a couple ducks. That was knee bash is probably the worst thing that happened in it. But usually I'll get out of this fight with a 100 flat at best, and it's just an extremely difficult fight to save time on. So the fact that I got out of it with 101 is really nice. I have no idea how you're supposed to get past those two guys without getting hit. It's completely crazy. And then it's just more platforming. Well, not even platforming, just maze navigation here. Let's see. This section is a lot of jumps that are a lot less difficult than they look. Just the way they're spaced ends up making them pretty easy to do. This fight's another one that doesn't look like it went that great, but in actuality I got pretty above average luck. Those knee bashes were unfortunate, but because they happened right after each other, it didn't cost me as much time as it would. I manipulated them slightly wrong. My intention was to get the one on the right to jump kick me, but instead the one on the left did, so I had to adjust, but it didn't really cost any real time. These conveyor belts are normally pretty difficult. I pretty much just go through them by tanking that one hit, and it works out. So this is one of my most improved sections from earlier. For some reason, I didn't realize that you could jump over these spikes. That jump through those two barrels is actually an extremely difficult one. In spite of how it looks, you aren't between those barrels. You're actually jumping over them in the way the game's processing it. Which, oddly, you're only allowed to jump over them at the highest point in their bounce arc. It really is extremely goofy. But you have to be very close to the spikes to get it. So this fight, again, I'm saving special attacks for the boss, so I have to hope that the enemies are nice to me. The first set of them went pretty well. These two are a little obnoxious, but they kind of obeyed. And then these two just take both jump kicks and save me a ton of time. Getting out of that fight with a 502 is just amazing. So now, this is the only character that I know of who I don't think is from the show in any way. Normally, he is an extremely difficult boss. All of his attacks have really favorable hitboxes. He will combo you very badly, and he takes a lot of hits. But after he does his jump kick, he has a vulnerability. And as he's standing, he has the same vulnerability. So I just abuse that to kill him. Jump off the platform, and that is the end of the game. So there's definitely some room for improvement, but not more than a few seconds that I can see at least. This game is extremely luck-based to get a better time in, I would say. So I'm pretty satisfied with that I got above average luck in general. and I didn't have any big mistakes. I had a couple little ones, but for a game like this, I'm not terribly worried about it. So anyway, thanks for watching the run. I appreciate that people are interested in seeing this stuff. Thanks SDA for being an awesome site, and thanks to all the people on it who helped me make this happen. And I'll leave you to watch the rest of this fantastic ending. Murphy Gator out of here.